Is there any evidence for talent? And in most cases, where you look and you see someone who's done really well, it turns out they've also practiced a lot more than the other people. So where we know practice improves performance, it seems strange to then attribute it to talent.
I think talent has a limit, and I think practice can always pass through the limit. A young, strong, fast man cannot beat an old sensei. Cannot happen. It does not happen. That's it. There's not any question. I mean, a sensei who's 50, 60 years old, who's practiced for 40 years, will not be beat by me.
And actually, I can think of an alumni right now that's working in New York, choreographing, dancing professionally, and she had some talent, but she worked harder than anyone I knew. She got there from her hard work.
One example is so-called perfect pitch. Pitch is arbitrary. It's not natural. It's something that men determine. So you have to learn it at some point.
So deliberate practice is the idea that it's not simply a matter of practicing a skill. You have to do it in a specific way, which is monitoring carefully your performance and adjusting it. And you often need a coach for this. So it's the difference between going out and play. If you wanted to become an expert basketball player, you could go and play basketball a lot, which most of us would enjoy doing, but that's not the same. A deliberate practice would be something like what Michael Jordan used to do when he was practicing. He'd go to the same place on the court, turn around, and jump and take a shot, and then he'd get the ball and he'd do it again and again and again, up to 100 or 200 times from exactly that spot, carefully thinking about how hard he was jumping, how hard he was shooting, until he learned exactly how to shoot from that position on the court. So that is a much more fine, deliberate practice.
A lot of times students want to do sort of the fun, big movement things, but actually what's really important is doing the very basic foundational movement over and over until your body can really, really understand it. So I think deliberate practice is very important.
And the other part of deliberate would be slow and deliberate. And I often use a sort of a Zen-like phrase with my students: don't drive faster than your headlights. Make sure that you're going at a speed where you can get to the next note without hesitating. Because it's not the event itself, it's the preparation and the transition from one event to another that brings about fluency. When it comes to practice, I don't tell somebody they have to practice a certain amount of time. I think it's best broken up into small things with goals, with small goals. You need to have the eventual goal in your mind, but you need to be happy with, okay, before I get up, I'm having trouble with just 2 measures of this piece. I'm going to master those 2 measures before I get up.
In Kendo, generally, the mentor will have 40 years of experience. You don't want to practice something and reinforce the wrong things, or even if it's not wrong, it might be inefficient, or there might be some deeper level of awareness that someone can impart to you through the practice.
I think what I've discovered over the years is the mentor or the teacher's most important role is getting the student past those points where they feel like they've come as far as they can.
I think family, in a broad sense, is critical. That I don't know that there's anyone who becomes an expert without a very nurturing environment that allows them to spend the 10,000 hours they need to become an expert. So it's an incredible imposition, both financial and social, on the unit, the family unit or friends or however they're living, for someone to become an expert. To become an expert requires an incredible amount of time and energy, and you can't just do it because you want to. You have to, there's the old story of little kids who you just can't get them to practice piano, even though their parents want them to learn. Without some motivation, it just isn't possible. And I think most experts, most people who are viewed as highly talented, aren't just motivated to practice in their area, but sort of passionate about it. It's something they always wanted to do.
drive is probably more important than talent. Because the person who thinks they're talented might be a little bit lazy. They might not want to push and drive. So it's possible that a person without so-called talent might get beyond somebody who thinks they're talented and don't have to work at it.
Discipline, like being able to make yourself go to class every day, even on days when you don't feel like it, or maybe take a class that you're not interested in as much, but that you know is really good for you to develop as an artist, to sort of have the discipline to make yourself take those steps that might not be so easy for you. I think that's more important because that's what will last.